Swamiji's mission, when Arya Samaj was given that slogan of Krinvanto Vishwam Aryam, that was decided upon, make the whole world noble. Today, how is that slogan making an impact in the world in addressing the challenges we face as a global community? So we cannot limit the Arya Samaj just to a satsang or to a bhashan. The Arya Samaj has to progress into the field, into grassroots level, into the hearts of our people, addressing platforms such as the United Nations.
Those who bring change, we call them like they are disruptive and they become controversial. You have to become controversial to bring changes, radical, right?
We need fearless leaders that are able to stand up and say, our Arya Samaj demands change.
So you are just suggesting like don't become like religion, dogmatic, not allowing any changes, but to become like dharmic people which believes in dynamism.
Who are we to remain stale? If our cells of our body can remain dynamic and change and become afresh and anew and adapt, then the principles have to remain stuck. We don't grow, we will never thrive.
From the point of view of social, organizational framework, what changes that is needed to become more relevant?
Every 4 years for a Mahasammelan, we all meet, we all drink a cup of tea, discuss great plans only to fly back home and to continue alone. There needs to be constant and consistent conversation between leaders of our countries.
Namaste everyone. A very warm welcome to you in our today's podcast, and I am honored to have Swami Vedanand Sarswati ji with us. Charan Arpas Swamiji, and literally off the camera while I was talking, I literally got fascinated by the simple thought like you are much more strategic in nature. You understand how world is dynamic and changing very fast, and so even Arya Samaj have to evolve, reform, not to change but to reform, and you are also doing interfaith dialogues. You are also connecting with Ram Krishna Mission people like organization, which is I think sadly missing from decades, and you're doing work in South Africa. You are from Durban. So namaste, pranam, and we will be honored, and please have your Ashirvachan on this international conference, Arya Samaj conference that is happening in Rohini, Delhi.
Wonderful. Ravi Bhai, thank you so much. It's an absolute honor and a pleasure to be with you on this beautiful podcast and to be at this Sammelan. Celebrating 150 years is no small feat. If you think at a time where we are looking at a celebration, yesterday alone, there must have been 50, 60,000 people who would have witnessed Modi ji's address for the Arya Samaj here. And I reflected back at a time where this solitary figure walked alone.
Right.
No Samaj behind him.
Yeah.
Everybody actually mostly against him because he was radical in his thought. And yet he persevered. He persisted. Why? Because he had the welfare of his people at heart. No ulterior motive. No suspicion. He walked with truth. And 150 years later, we have a global movement dedicated to that same truth. However, 150 years on, we now have the responsibility given by Swamiji to retransform, taking into consideration the dynamics of the world today as opposed to 150 years ago, so that the Samaj can be not just more relevant, but more impactful worldwide.
Wonderful. So much more impactful, and you were also telling, rather than just talking about metaphysics, we have to take the burning issues of the world, not just India.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
Right.
Remember, Swamiji's mission when he came, he saw and excuse for me saying the word, but the rot that had set in with the religious nature of Dharma at the time, the oppression from foreign power, the oppression from language, so much of oppression, so much of decay that had started to happen in 1875, that Swamiji's focus was on liberating the minds as well as the welfare of the people. both physically and spiritually, right? At that time, we must also remember that Vedas was not accessible to the people. So Swamiji had to literally put a shock treatment in order to awaken the people, reinstill pride, and to shake the foundations of this foreign oppression. Today, we have a cell phone. That cell phone opens our window to the world with all the access to all our shastras in whatever language.
Right.
Good or bad is another story, right? And if we want the authenticated truth, we have access to it. It's not forbidden to us. So people today have a choice. Once they understand, once they learn, they have, for example, we have the 10 principles of Arya Samaj. But to choose to adopt these principles and make it our reality is what is the point today. And that's where we are failing. As a result, we are seeing a world not of disarray, of not being exposed or having access to education or to dharmic knowledge, but the practice of dharmic knowledge, which makes us so clouded by materiality around us. We are in a world of plenty, yet we have corruption, chaos, war, hunger, poverty, and the list goes on. Swamiji's mission, when Arya Samaj was given that slogan of Krinvanto Vishwam Aryam, that was decided upon, make the whole world noble. Today, how is that slogan making an impact in the world in addressing the challenges we face as a global community? The Arya Samaj is the forebearer of the Vedic message, and the Vedic message is the liberation of humanity. It's for all, whether you are Hindi speaking, Tamil speaking, English speaking, no matter. It's not only for Indians alone. But over the years, we have concentrated ourselves only to focus on what is around us as Arya Samajis. This conference, particularly at this time, calls for us to come together as leaders, to understand and recognize what challenges are faced in the world today. What does the Vedas teach us about how to respond to these challenges? Create a program, an actionable program, so that our voice can be louder and more impactful worldwide. That an Arya Samaj sitting in South Africa, an Arya Samaj sitting in Fiji, or here in Bharat are not isolated institutions working slowly and quietly within their own borders, but work collaboratively, work as one with one common objective so that we have a global impact. There has to be more collaboration. But without that, without coming together, understanding who we are, understanding what the challenges are, at a conference such as this where we are able to meet our leaders, then it will never come to pass. And that is why the focus of the Arya Samaj for the next at least 30 to 40 years has to be in addressing the social challenges we face in our world today. That is putting those 10 principles of ours into action. What is principle 6, the primary objective of the Arya Samaj? To do good to the world, to serve towards the spiritual, social, and physical well-being of every human being. Ultimately, people are not going to focus just on spirituality if they've got no food to eat, no water coming through their taps, don't know where the next bomb is going to hit. Spirituality cannot just be something we listen to in a satsang or in a bhashan or a pravachan. Spirituality has to be practical. Vedas is a message of how we live. It is a way of life, not a religion. So we cannot limit the Arya Samaj just to a satsang or to a bhashan. The Arya Samaj has to progress into the field, into grassroots level, into the hearts of our people, addressing platforms such as the United Nations, a concept that Swamiji had in mind since the dawn of Satyat Prakash. And today, where's our voice in United Nations? It's not there. Because we too focus sometimes on our own political agendas. Let us move beyond that, and we can. We've got so much to offer. Swamiji has given us the roadmap. He's given us the seed. We have to plant it, nurture it, respect it, and carry it forward and share the fruits of that labor with those whom we serve. That is the direction we need to take.
And actually, those who bring change, we call them like they are disruptive, and they become controversial. But you have to become controversial to bring changes, radical, right?
So remember, when you call somebody controversial, then they are shaking some ground. Otherwise, why would anybody bother? You would have to feel threatened if somebody shakes the ground, and then you would start poking fingers and say, hey, what is that man doing? Look, again, I go back to Swamiji. Swamiji stood alone. He spoke something so radical against the tradition of the age.
Right.
People treated him as an enemy.
And it was British time.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
Now today, we are so afraid of going against the grain of what has become normal in society that we become radical because we moot for change. Swamiji was a reformer. Why? Because he understood Atharva Veda when it said these principles, these Vedas are eternal. But the way in which they are realized is always transforming, like the sun and the moon arising each day anew. So too, based on our time, place, and circumstance, we must take those values and realize them to the modern age. Doesn't mean we trample on our value system. Value system is eternal. But how you realize them, how you recognize that today, if Swamiji were here right now, where would he focus his attention? And I promise you, Swamiji will be a soldier for social justice. Swamiji will be a soldier for environmental rehabilitation and environmental justice. Yet we remain quiet because we have settled into our own orthodox, into our own norm. No. We need fearless leaders that are able to stand up and say, our Arya Samaj demands change. Our Arya Samaj is about liberation. And if we are not achieving that, then we are doing an injustice to the movement and we are doing an injustice to the legacy of Maharishi Dayanand. 200 years since his birth, 150 years since the foundation of a movement, it requires, with his inspiration, reform, restructuring, re-engineering with the same value system, but a newer and more refreshed approach. And this is where our youth would stand up because they don't want to listen to a bhashan on a stage.
Right.
They want to go into the field and see the transformation happen. Today, youth, I'll give you an example of South Africa. Our youth are so brilliant. They're actually overqualified, but they have no jobs. Economic empowerment is just serving the wrong dynamics in South Africa. There is great economic divides, and as such, our youth are struggling to find jobs. They have to go elsewhere. And then they say, Swamiji, I pray every day, but God is not answering my prayers. I'm still without a job. I'm still being unable to serve my parents. That's because, again, we have not brought spiritual understanding into his everyday life. When he has problems in his social life, when he struggles with stress and anxiety, he turns to drugs. How are we bringing the Vedas to understand a concept far deeper so that he doesn't choose drugs, but chooses entrepreneurship? All right, fine, if my qualification is not getting me, how can I motivate myself to strive higher? Find a way instead of blaming God or blaming something else. Do you see how we need to engage ourselves using Shastra? And that is why for today, a youth-orientated approach is necessary. Because if we do not have a generation that is motivated and strong for a generation tomorrow that will see a better world, then we will all fail. And it begins with the choices we make today as their seniors guiding them, not controlling them.
So I think means you are just telling me we have to be much more in feedback loop with the youth, like open architecture. We have to listen to them. What is being means what's the problem, what is required, then we have to present our solutions.
Absolutely,
Not
Ravi.
to bring or older package solution which is not required to them, right?
Absolutely. Do you know, about a couple of months ago, I had a conversation with some of our youth. And we were going through some of our older programs which still run today, even through some of our textbooks.
Okay.
And you realize there's so much that would have been relevant in the past, but is no longer relevant today. But the mere talk of changing it brings thunderstorms because people fear change. No, we've always done it that way. And yet, we do not realize that things that are irrelevant, which we are still preaching today, will make us irrelevant. When I was in a conference in Ecuador, it was on policies on migrants and migration. And here are people discussing migrants and migration who are comfortable in their home, have everything with them, don't have to run, don't have to flee. And we pose the question, how dare we discuss the rights and privileges of migrants and migration without the migrants and migration being present and giving us their side of the story, what they have to experience, what they feel. Likewise, We have no right to sit and discuss a program for youth without youth. The direction of the future, which is youth orientated, without it being constructed together with the youth. They have a mindset far more intelligent, but needing guidance. We are there to guide, but the powerhouse needs to come from them and their voices. And when we do that, we will have youth that will begin to become committed because they feel involved, they feel included, and they feel part of the platform. Not just because they're young, not just because we need a photo op, but because we believe and trust in their ability to take the movement forward, to make us also understand the realities they face on the ground, which we may not because we grew up in a different era.
Right.
We need to understand their mindset. Then you will see a powerhouse of an Arya Samaj becoming more relevant than we ever imagined.
So you are just suggesting like don't become like religion, dogmatic, not allowing any changes, but to become like dharmic people which believes in dynamism. Dharma is all about change, right? Means you have to.
Bhai, Vedas, as you would know, is extremely scientific as it is spiritual. If we look at the cells of our body, are our cells the same cells we were born with? They are constantly like yajna, being born and dying and sustaining, being born, dying, sustaining. This entire yajna continues. Who are we to remain stale? If our cells of our body can remain dynamic and change and become afresh and anew and adapt, our body grows, the skin stretches, then the principles have to remain stuck. We don't grow, we will never thrive. So change is necessary. Change is part of yajna. Transformation is part of the constructs of the natural world. The difference is that change has to always be done in accordance with that which is eternal, and that is Ved, the principles of Veda. That is why Vedas guide, they don't instruct, because instruction keeps a particular form, a structured, bounded form. Vedas guide so that as things change and transform, use that guidance to change and transform. Otherwise, we become stale, we become irrelevant, and a movement that could have been as powerful as ever, which changed the trajectory of Bharat in 1875, will not have the power to change the trajectory of the world going forward. And Krinvanta Vishwamaryam becomes lost. I believe, I truly believe, coming out from speaking to many leaders here, that we have the ability to really make the transformation necessary to make the Arya Samaj not a powerhouse politically, but a powerhouse with transformation for the world.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So, in last part of this podcast, I want to just ask you about means what could be strategic steps for more collaboration, like reformation within organization. Means people avoid talking about these things, but I think without changing ourselves, we can't change
Agreed.
outside.
Charity
right?
begins at home.
right.
Absolutely.
Bhagat Singh चाहिए लेकिन पड़ोसी के घर में है. That's so please guide us. Means what you observe. Means you visit lots of countries, not just South Africa. You meet people also outside Arya Samaj. You interact with also common people. So from the point of view of social means organizational framework, what brings, what changes that is needed to become more relevant in today's time?
So the first thing we need to do, Ravi Bhai, is step out of our four walls and step into the community. And it starts with collaboration within our Arya Samaj fold. We can't only wait every 4 years for a Mahasammelan. We all meet, we all drink a cup of tea, discuss great plans only to fly back home and to continue alone. There needs to be constant and consistent conversation between leaders of our countries. Today, if there's one thing COVID-19 taught us, was that the world can run online. We can all meet over Zoom, over all these online platforms, and constantly engage. If we are truly committed to making this movement global rather than localized, the more engagements and open talks that we have amongst our leaders, we not only understand each other, we also begin to understand if our challenges are the same, how we can identify who has better strengths, which we can adopt to transform our weaknesses, how we can share resources. Because unless we understand each other and identify our challenges together, we will remain individual and we'll remain quiet. So more collaboration is necessary on a regular and more consistent basis. Then by the time we reach the next Mahasammelan, we start producing success stories based on an action plan that we have committed ourselves to do. And that each organization, no matter where you are in the world, have adopted to say, okay, I'm going to focus on children development or development of our youth based on certain programs in the schools. So I come to next Sammelan and I say, this is where I've succeeded, this is where I've failed, how can we address what we have failed? Number one, so that is within the borders of our institutions. Number two, we need to be able to engage with other Hindu organizations, because this is an age where we need to start working together.
Right.
And not comparing who is better and who is worse.
Right.
Again, I said in the beginning, we have complete access to information. Today, people choose how they want to relate to Bhagwan. So, everybody has the freedom of choice, everybody has free will. How can we work together, share resources, compare ourselves for the greater work to be able to serve the same humanity that we are a part of? So, inter-Hindu work becomes important. It doesn't mean you lose your identity. I know who I am as an Arya sannyasi. But I can equally engage with a sannyasi from a different movement as I do in South Africa. And we can collaborate based on the common principles of Vedas for the welfare of our people. There is nothing wrong in that. And thirdly, interfaith work becomes so important because there is still a misunderstanding of what Hindu Dharma represents in society. Hindu Dharma is still seen as a religion focused on rituals. If we re-show the others out there that Hindu Dharma is about living the righteous way of life practically and socially uplifting, we start introducing the word of the Vedas in a way that shows that it's truly for humanity, regardless of the language you speak, background you're from. But unless we engage in interfaith work, understand each other, and start respecting each other, then we're falling short. This is no longer about the time of battling each other. We need to battle a greater evil, and we can only do that holding each other's hands. In South Africa, we have overcome these challenges. We get involved in our interfaith work. We get involved in working with our other sister Hindu organizations. Why? Because we treasure social justice and social upliftment more than identifying who's better and who's worse amongst ourselves. Swamiji wasn't about that. He was about liberating our people. And through that, people will realize that, hey, Vedas is not a religion. It is a way of life. So indirectly, the true message is getting across. If we start committing to these three things, Ravi Bhai, then as a Samaj, we will continue to grow steadily, progressively, and moving forward.
And I think that will be much more like Krinavanto Vishma Aryam.
Absolutely.
Right?
How else are we going to reach people outside of our language borders, outside of our racial borders? Arya Samaj can't be limited only to Indians or even Hindi speaking. We have to embrace the whole world. There's a beautiful mantra in the Atharva Veda which says this world, this beautiful Mother Earth, has people speaking different languages, having different cultures and dharmas in life, in work, and in experience. But the world is like a single home in which we all live in. And the same earth gives us equally. The sun shines for all. The river gives its water to all without expectation, without taking a vacation, without discrimination. Who are we to discriminate? We have to open our borders, open our hearts, embrace for the betterment of the world. Then, Krinvanto Vishwamaryam becomes a true, not just a slogan, it becomes transformation.
Wonderful, Swamiji. We are truly blessed to have you in our platform. And technically, I want to summarize in the last part, you were literally suggesting that learn from corporate, the strategy part, how they run their organization. Don't become like bureaucratic, heavy structure that runs slows and do not bring changes, just having a reunion and meeting people and enjoying.
Now it can't work
right?
that way.
Means
Absolutely.
it's not the goody thing, it's the hard work part.
Absolutely.
That you have to. Namaste, Pranam, Swamiji.
Bless you, Ji. Thank you, Ravi Ji.
Thank you
Pranam.
so much.
Namaste.
Namaste.